Some acts of madness are so extreme that the courts are simply not equipped to handle them. Some people are so wicked that their actions cannot be justified. In Milwaukee, the police made a chilling discovery of dismembered body parts. The impact of this case sent shockwaves throughout America.
A gruesome story leads off our newscast.
Milwaukee police found body parts in a North Side apartment, and now they wonder if they've uncovered some kind of death factory.
The details of the crime were ghastly.
Police removed boxes and boxes of body parts, evidence of what appears to be a psychopathic mass murder.
And the authorities found numerous boxes filled with the evidence pointing to the actions of a psychopathic mass murderer. The sheer magnitude of the horror was beyond comprehension. This was the pivotal moment when Jeffrey Dahmer faced the unforgiving consequences and received a life sentence, marking an evil unparalleled by any other.
Now authorities believe the suspect, 31-year-old Jeffrey Dahmer, may be responsible for as many as 17 murders.
30 years have come and gone, yet the enigma of Jeffrey Dahmer's heinous acts still bewilders and astounds, seeping into the very fabric of our consciousness through the gripping new Netflix series, Dahmer Monster: The Jeffrey Dahmer Story. In a chilling moment of reckoning, as the weight of a life sentence loomed over him, Dahmer defiantly faced the court, daring to confront the very system that was ill-prepared for the depths of his diabolical nature.
Your Honor, it is over now. This has never been a case of trying to get free. I didn't ever want freedom. Frankly, I wanted death for myself.
Amidst the courtroom's thick atmosphere, a flicker of unexpected relief danced across Dahmer's face, for in the absence of the death penalty, he knew his fate would be eternally sealed behind the forbidding bars of his prison cell.
This was a case to tell the world that I did what I did not for reasons of hate. I hated no one. I knew I was sick or evil or both. Now I believe I was sick. The doctors have told me about my sickness, and now I have some peace.
Jeffrey Dahmer was diagnosed with several disorders, including a troubling fascination with abnormal sexual desires, substance abuse issues, and a schizotypal personality disorder. He believed that by exposing the depths of his depravity, he could deter others from succumbing to their sinister urges.
Maybe there was a way for us to tell the world that if there are people out there with these disorders, maybe they can get some help before they end up being hurt or hurting someone. I think the trial did that.
However, despite his desperate plea of insanity, the court deemed him mentally sound during his gruesome crimes. The testimony of forensic psychiatrist Dr. Park Dietz focused on a crucial piece of evidence that proved Dahmer's sanity: his consumption of alcohol. This link between his monstrous actions and the influence of alcohol left no room for doubt regarding his twisted mental state.
But another reason he would drink is that when he was alone with those whom he meant to harm, he would have inhibitions against the killing that he would need to drink to overcome.
Engulfed in the twisted depths of his fantasies, Dahmer found solace in heavy drinking, for it was in an intoxicated state that he could bring his malevolent desires to life. This unsettling truth hinted at his consciousness of his actions and their inherent wrongness. Now, as he stood before the court, the time had come for him to finally face the consequences of his depravity.
I know how much harm I have caused. I tried to do the best I could after the arrest to make amends, but no matter what I did, I could not undo the terrible harm I have caused.
Amidst the darkness, a flicker of remorse emerged from Dahmer's heart, providing solace to the grieving families. Yet an eerie twist revealed itself as he delved into discussions about money. The nation had been horrified by the unspeakable acts that had unfolded, and Dahmer shockingly contemplated profiting from his own monstrous deeds.
If there is ever any money, I want it to go to the victims' families.
In an unexpected turn, he expressed a peculiar form of compensation, suggesting that any financial gains should be directed toward the families of his victims.
Today, it's the sale of serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer's deadly possessions that has some people scrambling and others screaming. Up for bids, a hatchet, saws, the refrigerator where Jeffrey Dahmer kept body parts, and other macabre memorabilia.
The tale takes a darker turn. The shattered lives of the victims' families were not the sole recipients of Dahmer's remorse.
The judge in my earlier case tried to help me, and I refused his help, and he got hurt by what I did.
Another tale of terror unfolds, revealing a chilling encounter with the law. These multiple murders were not the first brush Dahmer had had with the cold grip of justice. In 1989, a sexual assault case involving a teenage boy named Conorak Synthosomophone. According to the Times, the damning truth emerged during the trial. Dahmer stood convicted of the heinous act. With deceptive charisma, he enticed the vulnerable 13-year-old, luring him to his lair under the pretense of a nude photo shoot in exchange for money. The judge, armed with the weight of responsibility, intended to sentence Dahmer to 8 long years in the confines of a prison cell. Like a serpent, he slithered through the cracks, penning a letter of remorse to the judge. His words dripped with false contrition, manipulating the fragile threads of empathy. In a stunning turn of events, Dahmer's cunning plea resulted in a mere 10-month sentence, followed by a release on probation. The consequences of this ill-fated judgment cost lives that could never be reclaimed. And in a macabre twist, Dahmer extended his hollow apologies to the very police officers he once shamelessly deceived.
I hurt those policemen in the Conorak matter, and I shall ever regret causing them to lose their jobs.
While on probation, Dahmer started playing a sinister game. He cleverly lured naive teenage boys into his apartment, trapping them in his evil grasp. Unfortunately, fate struck again when the police were summoned in response to the startling sight of an Asian youngster walking aimlessly through the dark streets marked by bruises. The cops got carried away by their own presumptions and mistakenly handed him over to the very monster they were trying to stop, as they mistook the young boy to be Dahmer's lover. Sadly, the evening would see the boy's premature death as Dahmer ruthlessly put an end to his innocent being.
It is contained in the front page of the Milwaukee Journal this afternoon, the headline reading, "Police were in the Dahmer apartment." This was May 27th, nearly 2 months before the first bodies were found there.
The discovery of the first bodies sent shockwaves through the community, especially with the recognition of one of the victims, Conorak Synthosomophone, who was the brother of Dahmer's previous assault victim. Despite the gravity of the situation, Dahmer remained disturbingly emotionless, his demeanor resembling that of a seasoned poker player concealing his true thoughts. In July 1991, shortly after his arrest, Dahmer faced serious charges, 4 counts of first-degree intentional homicide, each carrying the potential for a life sentence. Additionally, the charge of habitual criminality loomed, threatening to add a decade to his punishment for each conviction.
Mr. Dahmer, you're charged with 4 counts of first-degree intentional homicide. If convicted of each of those counts, you face a term of life imprisonment. You're also charged with habitual criminality. That would add an additional 10-year penalty to each count upon conviction. Do you understand that?
I understand, Your Honor.
Months passed, revealing more victims whose lives were ruthlessly taken. His face remained cold and emotionless amidst the mounting accusations. The media, perplexed and fascinated, struggled to understand the mask he wore. Finally, at the climactic final trial, the families of the 15 men and boys who suffered at Dahmer's hands had the opportunity to confront their tormentor and look into his eyes. While most managed to maintain their composure in the face of such tragedy, one exception stood out. The sister of Errol Lindsay, consumed by unbridled rage, could no longer contain the fury burning within her.
The stricken families of the 15 men and boys Dahmer killed and mutilated held their peace. But today, before the sentencing, they had their day in court.
Did you ever stop to think that this is someone's brother, nephew, uncle, cousin, grandson, or just someone's friend?
I hope you can deal with what you've done. I'm trying hard to. You almost destroyed me, but I refuse to let you destroy me. I will carry on.
You destroyed the baby of the family, and I hope you go to hell.
Only the sister of Errol Lindsay was unable to contain her rage.
I don't want to ever see my mother have to go through this again.
The jury delivered the verdict with solemnity, a mandatory life sentence behind cold, unforgiving bars.
The court will impose a mandatory life sentence plus an additional 10 years on the habitual criminality. Count 2, life imprisonment plus 10 years consecutive to count 1.
It was a sentence that stretched for 957 years, far beyond any normal lifespan. Dahmer wouldn't taste freedom until the distant year 2949. The judge's horror was evident. He was shaken to the core by the case.
Nobody gets to ask the judge how you feel about horror movies, because I'll tell you what I do. I turn them off. That's one of the powers that you have when you control the television set.
In a moment of profound realization, he acknowledged the irreversible nature of this unspeakable tragedy. Its impact would forever haunt the minds of those touched by its cruelty.
A number of you have heard me use the expression before, I wish I had that magic button that I could put things back in place. But I don't have the power to bring people back to life. That's in the hands of somebody else.
And so, after 2 years behind bars, Jeffrey Dahmer's fate took a sinister turn. The man who had committed unspeakable horrors against his fellow human beings would now face a taste of his own medicine within the confines of a Wisconsin prison.
In Wisconsin today, Jeffrey Dahmer died. He was murdered in the prison where he was sent in 1991 for murdering 17 men and boys.
It was a twisted act of justice, one that sent shockwaves through the nation and ignited a debate about the boundaries of punishment and the nature of retribution.
I am happy and very excited that the monster is finally dead.
It's worse now because he's not suffering like we are.
In 1991, Dahmer's life was abruptly ended by a fellow inmate. It was a grim consequence of the heinous crimes he had committed against 17 innocent victims. For years, Dahmer had prowled the streets, luring young men into his clutches, subjecting them to unimaginable torment, and ultimately snuffing out their lives. Even the toughest people got chills from the details of his crimes of dismemberment, necrophilia, and cannibalism. News of Dahmer's demise spread like wildfire, and the response from the victims' families was a mix of conflicting emotions. On one hand, there was a sense of relief that the man responsible for their loved ones' untimely deaths would never again walk the earth as a free man. The weight of uncertainty and fear that had plagued them for so long was finally lifted. However, there was also a sense of disappointment that Dahmer had been denied a prolonged existence behind bars, where he could have reflected upon his actions and faced the consequences day after day. The way in which Dahmer died sparked concerns about the prison system's effectiveness and the ability to safeguard convicts from harm. How did one of the most known criminals of the time be assassinated while being watched over by prison guards? It revealed a flaw in the system, causing many to ask whether appropriate safeguards were in place to secure the safety of both inmates and employees. In the years since Dahmer's death, society has grappled with the legacy he left behind. His case has sparked discussions about mental illness, the nature versus nurture debate, and the responsibility of communities to identify and address warning signs of potential violence. It has prompted a re-evaluation of the criminal justice system and the way society deals with individuals who commit heinous acts. Dahmer's acts had far-reaching consequences that go far beyond direct victims and their families. It has come to represent the worst sides of human nature as well as a reminder of the significance of cultivating a society that values empathy, compassion, and the well-being of all of its members. The tragedy of Dahmer's acts serves as a wake-up call to prevent such crimes in the future. The story of Jeffrey Dahmer remains etched in true crime history. While the world may never find closures for the unspeakable horrors endured by Dahmer's victims, their memory serves as a stark reminder to cherish life, protect the vulnerable, and remain ever vigilant against the darkness that dwells within.